Rutgers should not pose a big threat to Oregon, but if they do, here's how.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. Keys to a big victory, not just a win, but a big win, which is what we all want Oregon to do this week against Rutgers. All my predictions, some thoughts on Dante Moore as well, all on today's show, which is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. Rutgers is an interesting team. You know, they don't have a bunch of NFL talent all over the roster like a couple of the teams Oregon will encounter or has encountered this year. They don't have incredible recruiting classes. They don't have a great record on paper. They should not be able to challenge Oregon in this spot. But you know what? UCLA lost to New Mexico and beat Penn State. Sometimes college football is weird. I've said all week, continue to believe this game is about Oregon. If Rutgers is threatening the Ducks on Saturday, late into the third or fourth quarter, it will be about what Oregon hasn't done more than what Rutgers has done in the game. But if they are able to do that, here's how. Let's start with their quarterback. Interesting guy, Ethan Kalakmanis. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He looks like a very classic Big Ten quarterback. Not the upper echelon guys. You know, the high draft picks and Heisman Trophy winners. No. He looks like what you have in your mind as the middle and bottom tier teams rolling out at quarterback in the Big Ten over the course of basically the last 20 years. That's what he looks like. That's not a shot. It's just what he looks like. Physically, he looks big enough to be out there. He's not the fastest. He's not the biggest, but he's not small. He's got some veteran moxie. He doesn't have the best arm, but it's good enough. He's accurate. He can make some plays, but he's not going to overwhelm you. His numbers so far this year, 66% completion, 11 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions. He is efficient. He is effective. He is solid. He has been in this system before. He is going to make some plays, senior quarterback. He's going to make some plays in this game. His numbers actually have been quite good. He's got over 1,700 passing yards this year. That's almost 1,800. It's pretty good. It's pretty darn good. It is not always the flashiest. I think what Oregon fans should be prepared for, it doesn't look, because he's not an NFL guy, he doesn't look like a quarterback that should make plays. But then you're going to look up at the end of the game and go, man, I feel like he made a couple of throws that were really good. And he's just an experienced quarterback that knows how to navigate around not having the strongest arm in the world, and he can make some plays. So when Rutgers played Washington on the road, what stood out to me most when I went and watched the film on that game were a couple of things with the Rutgers offense. Number one, what I just pointed out with Kalakmanis, and that's that he'll just make some plays. He's mobile enough. I think his mobility is kind of comparable to Fernando Mendoza. He doesn't have the arm that Mendoza does. But number two, Oregon has to be ready for the RPOs in this game. They have to be ready for the RPOs and the big-bodied receivers. These guys are, I like both of these guys. One of them was actually a tight end. I believe it was KJ Duff, was actually a tight end coming out of high school. They weren't super heralded recruits. Duff was a 4-star and Strong was a 3-star recruit. But I might have had that flip-flop. But anyway, they weren't, huge prospects or anything, but they're the leading receivers for Rutgers this year. Duff has got 479 yards and 4 touchdowns, and Strong has got 537 yards and 2 scores. Ian Strong is 6'3", 211. KJ Duff is 6'6", 225. These guys, what stands out to me, they have got sticky hands. They will make contested catches anywhere on the field. They will run over the middle. They will go on the sideline. They will do anything. And they are going to do what you often heard for years talked about in the NFL with Jimmy Graham. They are going to be a basketball player and box you out and high point the ball. And Oregon having better size on the perimeter defensively this year is important in a matchup like this. Because Jabbar Muhammad and Nico Reed were good players last year. They are not as big or as physically imposing as Ife Obadegwu and especially Brandon Finney. Those guys are going to get tested this week with a different style. You know, Indiana threw a lot of the back shoulder fades and deep outs. You know, that's where they really attacked Oregon last week. And by the way, Mendoza had 215 yards passing. I really don't think they played poorly. Elijah Surratt is really good. Yep, 100%. But they made more plays against that Indiana passing offense than a number of other teams will this year. Different kind of test. The play that you will see a lot, especially in like 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3 sorts of situations for Rutgers in this game, you're going to see the RPO slide with a downfield concept. The offensive line, I think, does a pretty good job of not getting overly downfield on those plays. So Calais McManus can actually go and make the read, and he is either going to hand it off, pull it and run, throw it in the flat, or throw it down the field. It's tricky, it's different, but I guarantee you Rutgers will run that play on a 3rd down and less than 5 at least 3 times in this football game. It will happen. They might run some variations of it, but Oregon has to be ready for that. It's a different type of offense. There are a lot of RPO concepts to it. I think their running back does a pretty good job, Antoine Raymond. You let him get loose, he will absolutely burn you. Washington learned that a bit last time out. He had just 15 carries, but had 89 yards. He also caught the ball 7 times for 89 yards and a touchdown, which was more receptions and receiving yards than he had totaled in the previous games combined. So offensively, Rutgers, I think, looks at this game the way I've talked about a number of opponents approaching the Ducks this year. They are going to try to limit possessions. They are going to try to execute in key spots. And those are the 2 things that Oregon really has to be able to focus in on. You got to take away the big body receivers, and that's easier said than done because Calais McManus can just kind of throw the ball up a little bit and let those guys go make a play at 6'3 and 6'6. And like I said, sticky hands. I feel like they've got super glue on their gloves when I watch them catch the ball. They do a really good job with contested catches and then the RPOs. That's where Rutgers is going to try and beat Oregon. I think the game script is going to be what Northwestern and Oregon State tried to do. Get first downs, limit the clock, keep Oregon's offense on the sideline. Because this Rutgers defense, not good. Not good whatsoever. They have allowed at least 30 points to every opponent they have played so far in Big Ten play. Washington threw for 402 yards and ran for 177. That is 579 yards of total offense. Now, that was at Husky Stadium, and Oregon's making the cross-country trip this time. But yeah, the Ducks should have about minimum 430-ish yards of total offense in this game if things are going according to plan. But fundamentally, that's what I think the biggest threat from Rutgers is that combination of guys and the way that they execute in key spots. So, let me know your thoughts. Drop your score predictions in the comments below. I'll have mine later on the show. The keys to a big victory are as follows. First, this episode brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered. Powered by DoorDash, just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players will deliver for Oregon if they are going to get a big win when it matters most. Let's start with Brandon Finney. Pick 6 last week, first interception of his young career. He is not slowly, he is just surely blossoming into a superstar in college football. He's a true freshman. It's pretty crazy. I can't remember a true freshman corner as good as him. And the Oregon defensive line would love to see them wreak havoc this week. I would love for a Mateo Uyunglele 2-sack game, for Amari Washington to have a big day. Anybody up there, they deliver for the Ducks like DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. Oregon will be just fine. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season. You can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive, fuel your game day. Only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. This episode also brought to you by our friends at Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. The real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Oregon's got a bunch of game-changing players. I want to see them on display this week. Supply House has a game changer for you. Supply House has next-day delivery, so if you need parts fast, you can get it your next day. Join the free TradeMaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. We've got our second segment sip. Let's talk keys to the game. So, start with something that was present for a brief moment last week. It was a great moment. It was a confidence boosting moment. It was a moment that made you think everything is going to be all right and Oregon is so unbelievably natty. And then it went away completely. Oregon needs to create explosive plays. According to many in the glorious YouTube comment section, which I love, by the way, I'm here for the engagement, here for the thoughts, all that sort of stuff. Down there, you will find no shortage of Will Stein critics, Oregon's offensive coordinator. And I am, I suppose, a Will Stein defender because I do think he's good, though he had a very bad day last week against Indiana. Dante Moore was worse. More thoughts on him coming later. But Will Stein did not have a very good day. If the offense in this game does not create a handful of explosives, if they do not hit at least 30 points against this Rutgers defense, my level of critique will increase significantly. You have my word on that. That will officially be, okay, what are we doing? This game should look and feel and end up like the Oregon State game, Northwestern, Oklahoma State. I think Rutgers is above Montana State, to be sure. I think they are above Oklahoma State. I think they are above Oregon State. But that doesn't mean that Oregon shouldn't be able to go out and play the way they're capable. I don't think Oregon played to their fullest potential in all of those games. For Oklahoma State, they did. Oklahoma State, they did 69-3. Like, that was a darn near flawless football game. And I don't think you can expect another conference game in the Big Ten to look like that for a program that has since fired their head coach. And by the way, the trail of coaches that have gone up against Dan Lanning this year, apparently you're either, every coach that Oregon has played this year is either one of three things: fired, extended, or an FCS coach. Montana State, they're not counting that. Doesn't matter. Gundy, fired. Trent Bray, fired. James Franklin, fired. Oh, David Braun is not. Okay, David Braun is the exception. And Kurt Signetti got extended. Man, I tell you, it has been some wild times. Anyway, bringing this back to Oregon. When you go watch their game against Washington, who I don't think has as much talent as Oregon, but is a well-coached football team. Jed Fish is a good football coach. I thought he would get it right. Looks like he has. They created a lot of explosives, and there were guys open down the field. If Oregon does not do this in this game, they are sufficiently healthy at every single position. Barring a tornado or a monsoon rolling through Piscataway, New Jersey this week, Oregon should be able to create a handful of explosives, whether that's with Takorian Moore, Malik Benson, Jeremiah McLaughlin, Kenyon Sadiq, Dier Hill. I don't care. Running the ball, throwing the ball, it's got to be there. If it isn't, as I said, my criticism level will go up. But if they do that in this game, I don't think Rutgers can keep up. I think Oregon's defense is better than Washington's, and they gave up 19 points at home to this Rutgers team. I think they're going to allow fewer than that, even though it's a cross-country trip. I think this team is going to come out with their hair on fire, chip on the shoulder, whatever you want to say about, like, I think Oregon's going to do all of that. But this comes down to the offense. And if you create some explosives early, I think you can get Rutgers down and out of the game plan that they want to have, which is let's limit Oregon's offensive possessions, try to keep this as low scoring as we can. Because they tried to get into a shootout, or I don't know if they were trying to. It was 13-10 at the half. But the second half turned into more of an up and down game in Seattle, and Rutgers ended up losing 38-19. They were up 13-10 at the half. So Oregon can do that, and I'd like to see that Washington second half be Oregon's first half. So creating explosive plays, to me, that is key number one, especially coming off of last week when Oregon created the one and then just didn't do anything after that for various reasons. Rutgers' defense is not as complicated from what I have seen as what Indiana did last week. They are not as talented. It is just not a matchup where Oregon's offense should be able to struggle. So this should feel more like the first few games of the season when everything was great. Key number two, and I think this is going to surprise some of you out there to hear, but there is method to my madness. Win on special teams. When teams pull an upset of this caliber that Rutgers is attempting to do, I think there are a good number of examples, Rutgers being an example when they beat a number one team way back when. I forgot to look up who that was. I will later. Anyway, you can't have a big mistake on special teams. You just can't. I don't think Oregon needs to go out and have 2 punt return touchdowns like they did against Boise State last year. I just think you have to look up at the end of the day and say, hey, James Ferguson Reynolds, how awesome is that guy, by the way? James Ferguson Reynolds had a solid game. Sappington didn't miss a field goal. That momentum swing at the end of the half, I really don't think you can overstate how big that was in the football game. That really took the air out of Autzen. They go down, get a field goal. It was that was huge. You can't give Rutgers anything like that. And Dan Lanning highlighted special teams in his press appearances throughout the week. You know, he mentioned that Coach Schiano over the years has done a lot of really good things with that particular unit and that they've had some big plays. You cannot let them get that. I don't know that there's anything that gets a home crowd more on fire. And make no mistake, there'll be a good crowd. I expect there to be a good crowd. Rutgers not an incredible program, but they've got a pretty solid fan base, and that stadium can get wild. They'll go crazy hair on fire if Rutgers special teams makes a big play. Blocks a punt, blocks a kick, return for a touchdown. A Kyle Whittingham Utah fake punt from 2015. I was at that game. That was terrible. So win on special teams, or at least be neutral, I think is a key in this game. And then number 3, this goes back to what I talked about earlier with what I expect the game plan to be for Rutgers. You got to get off the field on third down. Do you need to stay on the field offensively? Sure, it's always a good thing to do. But I don't have win third down as the key. You've got to get Rutgers offense off the field on third down, or they will just chew the clock, wind it down, and keep the game as close as they possibly can. If they do that, you know, Oregon State and Northwestern had below average success, I'd say, running that sort of game plan against the Ducks, and they won anyway, even though Oregon didn't play perfectly in those games. But I think that if Oregon's defense is able to hold Rutgers to, let's say, under 33%, like less than 1 out of 3 on third down, I think they'll be in really good shape. And I think that Rutgers is going to try to keep Dante Moore on the sideline because they know those explosive plays can be there, and they're there to be had, both on the ground and through the air. I think that Oregon can create a lot of big plays in this game, get up and down the field, and score a lot of points. So those are my keys to a big victory. Number 1, create explosives. Number 2, win or at least be even on special teams. And number 3, get off the field on third down. You do those 3 things, or at least 2 of them, I think Oregon is winning this game comfortably. I expect Oregon to win no matter what. Not just because they're a big favorite, but because they lost last week. It is clearly at some level. I mean, Dan Lanning was getting asked about a game from Saturday on, I think it was a Wednesday. James Crepea asked him, and he, was a little hot and bothered about it. I would be too, frankly. But it showed me that it bugs Dan Lanning that happened. He's going to have his team ready to go. I fully believe that. My prediction and thoughts on Dante Moore coming next. First, this episode brought to you by Rugia. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something that goes beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugia Go Long. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula. The effects can last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day, all night and even into the next day so you can be ready whenever the moment is right. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to rugiet.com. Use the promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com. Promo code LockedOnCollege. Make sure to use the code so we know that you sent you. That's rugiet.com, rugiet.com. Use that promo code LockedOnCollege, all one word. Check them out at rugiet.com. This episode also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NFL season's here. FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet, you put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And you want to spice up college football this weekend? You feel really good about Oregon's chances? Hey, if you think the Ducks are winning by 40 on Saturday, which is what we would all certainly like to see against Rutgers, then you got to go over to FanDuel.com. You've got point spreads, you've got money lines, you've got point totals, everything you could possibly want or need, FanDuel has got you covered. So just ask yourself this question: what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Check them out at FanDuel.com. For those watching on YouTube, you know I talk with my hands a lot. I've always done that. I've always been that way. And sometimes I'm emphasizing a point and I just rattle my desk. I hit that underneath, like there's a bar underneath on this desk, which is where my hands were at the time, and I just lurched them forward and wiggled the camera. Anyway, I want to start with thoughts about Dante. No, I'll just go with my prediction. Oregon 38, Rutgers 17. I think Oregon has at least 430 yards of offense in this game. I think they get back on track. I think this is an ease the concerns sort of game for Oregon fans. Because I understand why they were happening after last week. I became less concerned about it as the week went on. It was certainly a frustrating effort and a disappointing one, particularly at home. I think that's what bugs me the most. I expected Oregon to be 5-1 at this point. I thought it would be a loss to Penn State and a win against Indiana. Frankly, as thrilling as that Penn State victory was, and I do think that they broke the Nittany Lions' will to just keep on competing at the level that they're capable of, I would have rather Oregon lost to Penn State and beaten Indiana. I cannot stand losing at home in college football. It drives me insane. Absolutely crazy. And I know it drives the players and coaches insane as well. But yeah, I think that's another reason I really like to see Oregon come out and just vanquish last week's game as best they can. So for Dante Moore, I think he and Oregon fans have something in common this week. We're not necessarily looking for go insane, have a 400-yard day, just get back on track. Okay? Train tracks have been really solid this year. Oregon has kept the train on them, full steam ahead. Okay, they started to veer off the tracks. Just get them back. You don't need to get them back and then, I don't know train conductor lingo, but you don't need to put everything you've got into the thrusters, Scotty. Okay, you just need, you were in warp speed. This is a metaphor I'm going to understand much, much more and have a better comprehension of. You were in warp speed. You were overtaken by the ship in Star Trek Into Darkness that can travel at warp speed. I might not have that movie right. And you got knocked out of the warp speed path. Okay, you don't need to go to hyper warp speed or super warp or go be ready to take on the Super Romulan ship. I wonder how many of you are getting this reference right now. I'm crisscrossing Star Trek movies, I'm fully aware. You just need to get back into hyperspeed. Just get back into the lane. I would love nothing more than to look up at the end of this game at the box score and see that Dante Moore has gone for 270, 2 touchdowns, and he's run for 30 yards and taken no more than 1 sack. I would love that. That would be truly excellent. So if Oregon can go out and accomplish that this week, I'll feel really great. Another thing with Dante Moore to watch. Damon Williams last week, who is a better runner than Dante Moore. Damon Williams went crazy with his legs in that game against the Scarlet Knights. I believe he ran for, let me pull it up real quick. He had 146 rushing yards. Jonah Coleman only had 49. So he went all over the place. Now, Dante Moore is not that type of runner, but I do wonder for an offense that struggled last week to get things going if there aren't a couple of design quarterback runs because Rutgers has shown themselves to be exploitable. Now, Greg Schiano's a longtime veteran coach, and I'm sure we'll watch film and try to make some adjustments with his guys after last week because, I mean, there were just gaping lanes. There were a couple broken pass plays where he's scrambling. Mostly, though, it was just read option stuff. Like really, really basic Jeremiah Masoli style. Just pull it out of the running back's stomach. And, I mean, Washington would have some lead blockers. You know, they'll do that a lot with Damon Williams. I don't think Oregon will do that with Dante Moore in this game. But the blockers sometimes would pull around. They'd have nobody to block. There would be nobody there. So I wonder if that doesn't come into play a couple of times. Now, Will Stein's answer to that sort of defensive weakness has tended to be put an RPO tag on the back of it. Most of his run plays have an RPO tag on it. So maybe that turns into a couple of big plays for the Ducks. But just keep an eye on Dante Moore's legs. He shouldn't need to use them a lot. You know, I only want to see him run a bunch when he has to, like against Penn State, when you got to have a numbers advantage because you're going up against a great front. Rutgers shouldn't be that. You should have no problem running the football. Would love to see De'Aaron Hill get going in this game. But whether it's him or Jordan Davison or Noah Whittington or a combination of the three, Oregon should be able to run the football. And they should be able to move the football at will, particularly through the air. Rutgers allowed some just big chunk plays there. And with Oregon's receiving talent, that's what I'd like to see. So I've got Oregon 38-17. I think they win. I think they cover. Let me know your thoughts below. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.